serve more, and of course, be more. This module that we'll be going through today is on from passion to planning and paperwork, basically how to start your nonprofit in 7 steps. If you have time to get a pen and a sheet of paper, I would strongly encourage you to get a pen and a sheet of paper, because there may be some juicy nuggets that you want to write down and make sure that you take away. And I'm also going to have a little bit of time where I go over the past homework for everyone that is here. Thank you for joining, and if you're listening to the replay as well. So I'm going to just give you an overview. What is Be More LLC? Be More LLC is a organizational development agency. We work with new and emerging nonprofits that help them build from the ground up the right way. We are based out of the Baltimore, Maryland area, and we have tons of distance learning programs, and we serve clients all over the world. And who am I? Who is your instructor? I always like to tell people the person who I am Bertha Mae's grandbaby, because my grandmother was the first example for me of what nonprofit leadership looked like. Even though she didn't have her own official 501c3, she taught me how to serve. Yes, I am Bertha Mae's grandbaby. That's right, Vanette. She taught me how to serve and how to love and how to lead while serving. I've had over 10 years of nonprofit experience, both domestic and international. My international experience is when I worked for the U.S. Department of State on Middle East and Northern Africa grants, and did some things around nonprofit development there, as well as work domestically. I have a certification in nonprofit leadership. I also have a master's degree in nonprofit leadership, and I am currently a PhD candidate in the School of Social Work. So that is a bit about me. So I always go through this process because I want people to kind of know and understand a little bit about what they're getting, know what your role is in this process. I want you to know that no one has more control over your success than you. Also, don't expect $1 million results if you have a minimum wage work ethic. So basically what I'm saying is make sure that you do the work. This is a process that you definitely work through the process. And as long as you do the work, you should be good. Just making sure that you do the work and go through the process. I'm going to do a little bit of a homework check-in in a moment. Who is this for? This is for people who want to make a living at making a difference. This is for new and emerging nonprofits who want to get a jump start on their vision. Some people who want to go from concept straight into creation. And it's also for people who are tired of the state of their community. If you've been looking at the news like I've been looking at the news, then you know that what the world needs now is probably something that you have to offer. You probably have a service that someone out there is waiting for. So, be mindful for that. And this is who this is for. And so we're going to do a little bit of a homework check-in. I see there's someone waiting in our waiting room. I'm not sure why she's waiting in the waiting room. Let's see if I can add her to the conversation. Yes. All right, Rochelle, I hope you were able to get in. I saw that you were in the waiting room, so I just pushed the button to go ahead and let you in. So here is the check-in. Our last module that we did was on how to tell your brand story. Also, for anyone who hasn't yet joined the virtual community, please do so. Connect with people, say hello, talk about your vision, your mission, and just get with other people who are working to make a difference in the world. It just helps when you're doing these things together. Also, our homework last time was write your hi. Thank you for saying hello to everyone. There's other people in the room. They're not being as chattery. The other people in the room, I'd like you to go ahead and say hello to the other people in the room. I can see that you're in the room because I can see the attendee list. But sometimes it's just good to say hello and let other people know, that they're not alone. And also so that we can see that we do have community here. All right, so our last homework was around writing your brand story. and we talked about the different aspects of the brand story. How far did everyone get in writing their brand story? What did you get? Did you have some challenges around that? Anybody want to speak up and let me know what that was what that was like for you, writing your brand story? Or if you even got to it, just any comments that you might have around writing your brand story. Didn't get to it, still working on the mission? Okay, nope, it's a process. It is a process. And again, this course actually is the students are given double the amount of time that you're given. So we're condensing it and you have 1 week to do the homework, whereas in a normal classroom setting, it would be 2 weeks. You would get the assignment and you would have 2 weeks to get it. So don't feel any guilt or shame or anything like that if you didn't get to it yet. Another aspect of your homework, good. I'm glad that was a relief for you. Vanetta says, phew. Another aspect of it was writing your unique service proposition. And what that basically is, as a recap, is just how you uniquely serve. To write that, you would have to know what is the problem that you solve in the world. And as well, you would also need to know how it is that you uniquely serve, right? I know a lot of people, when they start their nonprofit, in their mind, no one else is doing it. This population isn't being served. When you do a little bit of research and development, you find that there's other people serving this population. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're not needed. How are you going to do it differently? Are you going to serve a specific zip code? Are you going to do it with a twist? Are you going to, provide something very different? I'm glad you started writing something. Good. And again, no, don't feel bad about it. This is normally you're giving a lot more time to be able to do this. And this is kind of an accelerated course. So the two main course objectives, there's only two, but those are two really, really big ones. I want you guys, by the end of this class, to know the 7 steps to starting a nonprofit and basically just to understand the paperwork. Those are two huge things that I don't want to overwhelm and say, do this and do this and do this and do this and have a whole bunch of objectives. These are two really big objectives. If you know how to start your nonprofit in 7 steps, and if you understand the paperwork, those are really big steps, right? So first I want to start with what are the 3 most common mistakes that people make when they're starting a nonprofit. Number 1 is they try to do it by themselves. They don't need anybody. They got it all figured out. They make it in a silo. And then they realize that it's going to take a whole lot more than them. And then it ends up falling by the wayside because they didn't get the help they needed in the beginning. Also, they create a board made up of just their friends and family. And that is usually also a red flag. When you're filling out paperwork and you turn it in and they look at your board members and a lot of them tend to have the same last name, that's a little bit of a red flag. It doesn't automatically disqualify you, but they'll probably take a little bit longer. They'll probably ask some more probing questions. They'll probably ask some questions and then send the paperwork back to you. So when you think about that when you're coming up with who's on your board. Also, number 3, they start the paperwork before they have a clear plan on what the organization is going to be. That has to be, I know it's number 3 on here, but that has to be like really one of the biggest ones. They just say, I have an idea, what is it? Or they go to a lawyer or someone to help them complete the paperwork. And let me tell you, there are people that will be lined up around the corner that will help you with the paperwork and take your money and not worry about whether or not your nonprofit is successful. That is just the truth. And so what people end up doing is they go ahead and they get this nonprofit 501c3 status filing. They don't have a plan. Their board isn't fully developed. They don't have their bylaws together. They don't know how they're going to generate revenue. They just got a passion and some paperwork. And that is one of those nonprofits that typically ends up having their grand opening and grand closing in the same year. So what I want to share with you in lieu of these 3 most common mistakes that people make when they're starting their nonprofit is how can we avoid them? And again, how can we do this the right way? So step 1 is don't try to do this alone. This is not a one-man job. This is not a one-person job. So establish a team. That team is going to be your board. Again, avoid having a board that only includes your family and friends. You have a falling out with your friend, you have a falling out with your family, or even if you're in good standing or good condition with them, and they're just committed to you, but they're not committed to the mission, right? And that's a whole different thing, because there are friends and family that I have, and I know they want me to win, and they're committed to me, and that's fantastic. But you need people who are more committed to the mission, to the organization, and to the success of that organization than they are to that one-to-one relationship. Make sure that as you seek out members to join your board, look for those who have demonstrated alignment with your organizational mission. Next week, we're going to take a deeper dive into how to develop that team for your board and what you should be looking for, and a little bit more around what that looks like. So step one, if you have a sheet of paper, I would write this down. I would RTD it, write that down. Establish a team. Number two, establish rules of conduct and authority. Basically what that is establish your bylaws for the organization. This is before 501c3. This is before going to get anybody else. This is before all of this other stuff that people like to get. This is part of the planning process. So you are going to establish your bylaws. Now, you may be thinking, how can I get bylaws? Where are they? You can go online and you can get a sample of some bylaws, and then you tweak them to what rules that you would like. And you can even Google search nonprofit bylaws and get a template. Your state may not require bylaws. That's something that you'll probably want to look into. However, the IRS does will require a copy of your exemption application. And we're going to get into the application as well. But after you establish a team, get together with that team. And as a team, you are going to establish the rules of conduct as well as the rules of authority for that organization. And that is just simply called the bylaws. So that's step two. That's my little animation for today. Step three, incorporate your organization through articles of incorporation. What does that basically mean in a nutshell? This is another thing that you can simply get a sample of online, and you can Google articles of incorporation. Now, what I know, one of the things that people also ask me is about the difference between articles of incorporation and bylaws. And I'm going to get into that. If that's one of your questions, then just sit tight. So step three, you develop the team. Your team come together and develop basically the rules of conduct, the bylaws. Then you're going to develop your articles of incorporation. Feel free to Google, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Google articles of incorporation for nonprofits. Try to find a nonprofit that you feel like is in alignment with you, and then you're going to tweak it to fit what your needs are. Next, get your organization's number. Like, hey, organization, can I get your phone number? No, not a phone number, but get the basically it's a social security number for your organization, also known as the Federal Employee Identification Number. That number is going to be absolutely necessary when it comes to you getting a bank account. And a bank account is another one of those steps that we're going to talk about as well, and that is absolutely crucial. So you get your team, because you're not doing it alone, right? Then that team comes up with the bylaws, they come up with the articles of incorporation, and then you get your EIN number. Okay. Did I skip no, that's after this. Okay. So step 5, meet with your team. What are you going to do when you meet with your team? You guys have to have an official meeting, and this meeting should happen before you file your paperwork, before you go out to the public and announce who you are. You need to meet as a unit together so that all of you could be on the same page. Your board are the ambassadors and the first people who are going to speak for and about your organization. Again, we're going to talk more about board development next week, so that you can let your team know what they need and how to get what you need for your organization. Have your first official board meeting, and in that official board meeting, you need to make sure that you do, I only highlighted it looks like 2, but 3 things are the most important things that you need to do in that meeting. Adopt your bylaws. Your board is adopting them. And when they adopt them, each person is going to sign the adoption of them. Finalize the articles of incorporation. And then 3, this may seem like a small thing, but you will need to take official meeting minutes. They may ask you that when you go to file your paperwork. They may ask you for your bylaws, your article of incorporation, and your meeting minutes from your last meeting minutes from your board. And yeah, so make sure you do that. I can't emphasize that enough. Maybe if I do like a little dance, you'll remember this. You'll remember that girl was like dancing something weird around step 5, so that must have been something. So if that helps you to get it in your head, then I am cool with it. Now, back to a question that I'm sometimes asked: what is the difference between articles of incorporation and bylaws? So to put it very plain and simply, one of the things I like to do is I like to demystify this process so that everybody can know where they are and what they're doing. Articles of incorporation contain general information. What is the name of the organization? What is the location? What is the, all of these things that are just basic, like this is the basic outline of this organization. Who is the president, or who is that sort of thing. Bylaws are about the rules, the regulations, and the conduct. So one is more of like a external document that's used more externally, and bylaws is something that's used more internally. If you ever join a nonprofit board, if you're on a nonprofit board, always ask to see the bylaws. If you're on right now and you haven't seen the bylaws yet, ask them to see the bylaws, because that lets you know what are the rules, the regulations, and how is this organization governed? What is allowed? What is not allowed? What are the roles and responsibilities of different people? Bylaws are very important for that. A lot of times, sometimes people don't necessarily write out bylaws because some aspect, like some states don't require it. And so what we tend to do is skip through whatever step we don't have to do. If you're not going to make me do bylaws, and I'm not going to do bylaws, I would say do, whether your state requires it or not, do your bylaws, because it's going to help paint a clearer picture, not only to you, but also to other people about the organization, about how it's set up, and about how you run things and how things get done. So do the bylaws. So here's some other steps outside of the 7 main steps. Here's some other steps that you want to do. One, you want to establish a bank account that is separate from the organization. It gets really messy, and one of the mistakes I see people make sometimes is they start a nonprofit, and because they started it, they're using their money from their bank account, and then other people donate, and it just gets messy. It gets super, super messy. So establish a bank account for the organization so that when people write checks, they're not writing checks to you, they're writing checks to the organization. That's definitely establish a bank account. And you're going to need that EIN number when you establish the bank account. Also, establish where the headquarters is going to be. The headquarters could be your house. Just make sure that you have a clear understanding of where that's going to be. And also establish an official email address. I know a lot of organizations start off with just whatever their name is, Yahoo, or whatever the nonprofit name is. So it could be nonprofit XYZ@gmail. That's fine. Just have a source, a location where people can communicate and send things if they need to send them directly separated from you personally. A lot of these things that are these other steps are things to make it less messy and kind of separate it so that this is a nonprofit entity and then this is you over here. And there's no messiness, no blurriness, no confusion. It has its own bank account. It has its own email address. So that's something that's important as well. And those are just some extra steps outside of the 7 steps. And we're moving through this pretty quick. I'm just going to slow down for a second. Does anybody have any questions on anything that I've said so far? And I'm just kind of burning through it. Give people a moment to type in. Okay, Vanessa doesn't have any questions. Anybody else have any questions? Any questions at all? Okay, I'm just going to, not at the moment, very clear. All right, good deal. So I'm going to move right along then. So the next step, step 6, is make it official. How do you make it official? So you can do charitable work. You can call yourself a nonprofit. You are not a nonprofit according to IRS and according to the federal government until after you have filed the Form 1023. This form is for the 501c3 tax exempt status. That is what makes it official. Once you file that, once you hear back from them. Now, one of the questions sometimes people ask me is like, how long does it typically take? It really depends on how much of this you've done on the front end. I've worked with nonprofits and we've done all of this stuff on the front end, and then we submit that paperwork and it's smooth. Like they hear back in 3 months. I've also encountered other people who they don't do anything except for they had an idea and they went to somebody who was a lawyer that helped them fill out the paperwork. And so they didn't have a lot of this stuff established. There was a lot of red flags. It kept getting sent back. That could take 9 months. That could take a year. So how long it takes, it really depends on how much pre-planning you do to get this thing going. Another thing I like to let people know is in terms of better ways in terms of like how not to be in a rush to do it. You can get a fiscal sponsor before you get your Form 1023. You could get a fiscal sponsor. And what that will allow you to do is if you find a nonprofit that aligns with some of the things that you want to do, let's say if you wanted to, I would say youth development. So if you wanted to do a youth development program and you wanted to do a youth development organization, nonprofit entity, you're filing your paper. You're not even filing your paperwork at this point. You're just thinking about the idea. You're going through these steps and you don't have the official status right now, but you still want to do the work. That's fine. You can do the work. What I would do is I would get in contact with a local school, because schools are 501c3s, a local university, because most universities are 501c3s, or a local church. Churches are 501c3s. So get in contact with them, tell them this is some of the work that I want to do. And what you can do is if people want to give you donations, they can still give you donations through that organization. They'll be your fiscal sponsor. What that basically means is they're just going to handle the more of like the operations, not the operations, I'm sorry, like the paperwork aspect of it. And they usually take a small percentage out of it. So if I donate $3,000 to your organization, the people who are your fiscal sponsors, they may take $300 of that for them being your fiscal sponsor. So you don't necessarily have to wait until you file your Form 1023 to start doing your work. You can start doing the work ahead of time, so long as you have a fiscal sponsor. So, and I say this so that people don't feel so in a rush that they skip all of these other planning aspects. And another thing that is good that having a fiscal sponsorship will also do for you is you will establish credibility in the community. People will know you when you file your letter to the IRS. You'll be able to file like a letter from the community talking about the work that you do, and that is definitely helpful. So now let's take a look at the 1023 form together, so you guys can see a little bit about what that form looks like. Now, I didn't print out. I don't have the entire thing. It's about 10, 15 pages, but I have some of the pages so that you can pretty much get a good idea of what that paper looks like. There we go. So this is the application to get your 501c3. And if you want to look it up and see how you get that, you simply Google you could put in SF 1023, or you could just put in Form 1023. And it's PDF downloadable. I would strongly encourage you, and I think I put as part of the homework for today, to just print it up and fill it out so you can see what questions might come up. I don't know what this is. And also it helps you think through the process of the development of your organization. So of course in section 1 you see you're going to have the name of the organization. 2, if you have I guess you could say like an alternate name, mailing address, EIN, that's the number that we got way before this process. Sometimes people just, they'll go straight to this form and then say, oh, I need this EIN number. Now let me go back and get this EIN number. But no, you need this number before you file for this, all right? Your city, your state, the part on number 5 where it says monthly, the annual accounting period. If you haven't made any money because you haven't been existing as an organization, you're just going to put 0, which is totally fine. Primary contact officer, authority. Really, what that position is, what you're going to put in 6 is the authorized representative. The authorized representative is basically the person who is going to sign papers. Like if you have some legal papers or if you have any official papers for the organization, the authorized representative is going to sign them, and that's also where they're going to send them to. Okay. A little bit on that. And here's the next part. So if your organization has a website, your organization email, it says optional. I would just put the organization email. Definitely have an email set up where they can send information to. You want them to be able to get in contact with you and communicate with you as easily as possible, whether that is through an address, an email, a phone number. Give it to them. Okay, and so date of incorporated or corporations form. Now you see that number 11. Does everybody see the section where it's number 11 on the form? Let me know if this is too small, because on my screen I can see it perfectly fine. But okay, good deal. So right there, remember when I said back, I don't remember how many steps ago, that you're going to have your first meeting, and in your first meeting, you're going to establish your bylaws and incorporate your articles of incorporation. That's that meeting. That's that meeting right there. You're going to put the date in, and they're probably going to ask for an appendices to it. So you could say that this is the date that we have, established our articles of incorporation right there. If you're in a foreign country. So at the top of each page where it says like Form 1023 Rev, and then it has the name EIN, that's the organization's name and the organization's EIN number. That is going to be at the top of every page. Now let me do my little disclaimer and say that I am not a lawyer. And so I have no legal advice around this. The only advice I have is regular, typical boiler, nonprofit, like exclusively nonprofit development related advice. So however you complete the form, you're definitely more than likely you're going to want a lawyer to do this. What a lawyer will be able to do is tell you the do's and don'ts in terms of like how not to go to jail, right? And how not to break the law. Okay, so take that in. All right, and we are getting to the 7th step. This is a much quicker class than the other classes. I think because I'm just kind of giving it to you like boom, boom, boom. Also because I know it's a lot to take in, and I want you to be able to really digest this, so I don't want to give a lot of different things here. Step 7. Step 7 is registering your state. And you are going to check because there's federal registering, and sometimes people just register federally and they don't register in their states. And some people are not really aware that they have to register in their state, but you do. You have to register federally, and you also register in your state. Check with the Department of Assessment and Taxation. One of the good reasons of checking with them is if you have a name in mind, you could check with them to see if that name is already taken or some variation of that name is taken, with whatever state you are in. I'm in Maryland, so ours is sdat.dat.md.gov, I believe it is. And you could go in there and you could see, oh, is this name taken? How many organizations have this name? And so forth. So that is the 7th step. Any questions so far? You guys are quiet today. No questions. Okay. All right. All right. So I'm just going to wrap it up. This was pretty good. Good. I'm glad that you're taking notes, Vera. So next class is going to be on board development, and that's around getting the right people on the bus. And the things that I want you guys to look into in terms of homework is just really check to see if any other organization has the name that you've been thinking about. Go online and print up, or you could just look at it online, but I would recommend you print it up. Because when you file for your actual Form 1023, I don't want that to be the first time you see that paper. I don't want that to be the first time. So when the lawyer is going over it with you, you will be able to make some informed contributions as to how that is set up. Because sometimes they're just, about getting it done, so to speak. So definitely look for that form, print it up, and just do a mock filling it out. Just fill it out. It's not going to hurt anybody. You just fill it out. What would you think would go there? And how does that look? And just go through that process and really feel that process. So I know that this has actually been a lot in a short amount of time. We're very much under time, which is kind of good. Can anyone tell me what has been an aha moment, a takeaway, moments of clarity? What did you get? What did you learn now that you didn't know before? Registering in the state and federal. Yes, definitely want to do that. Definitely. All right. Well, again, thank you everyone for joining live and everyone who is watching the replay. Please, again, do go and interact with people in our virtual community. I hope this information was helpful and useful for everyone. So until next time, continue to do more, serve more, and be more. Bye-bye.